suspicious. But you made a key point there that they're finding it difficult to counter disinformation and misinformation if the authorities are not necessarily putting out the truth themselves. So what better place to go than the BBC? And this caught my eye over the weekend. It's BBC Sounds, Ukrainecast. I'd never listened into this before, but I started to listen to this clip and I was struck by something. Let's just play it for you and we can discuss what they said.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, it's 793 days since Russia began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In the last episode, we asked for your ideas of people we should invite onto Ukrainecast to answer your questions. And Jane, in North Yorkshire, here in England, got in touch.
Hello, Ukrainecast. In a recent episode, you asked listeners to suggest people for your podcast. I'm very impressed with General Ben Hodges, the former head of the US Army in Europe. Can you get him on? Thank you.
Jane, your wish is our command. Ben Hodges, welcome to Ukrainecast.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Tell us more about yourself.
Well, I was Commander U.S. Army Europe from 2014 through 2017 and then retired from the Army. I stayed in Europe after I retired, and now I serve as a senior mentor for NATO logistics. And I do everything I can to help explain why Europe and NATO and Ukraine are so important to the United States as well as to the rest of us. So I'm interested in helping Ukraine defeat Russia and explaining how we can do that.
Well, perhaps it was just me, but I was fascinated at the idea that a lady called Jane in North Yorkshire would select former General Ben Hodges as somebody who the BBC should promote. Was it just a coincidence that this elderly lady's been focused on this man? Or could it possibly be that the BBC did a little bit of help to get the person they wanted? I'm not too sure, but let's look at Ben Hodges. I went to his Twitter page. Noticed that he said on that recording that he was there working for the United States. And then it was like he suddenly realized that he was in front of a British or a European audience, and he corrected it to say, well, I'm here for you all. But really he's not. He's here for the USA. And a very bland head on his Twitter page. But if you go down the tweets, you rapidly see what this man is. This was a pinned tweet: Ukraine making Crimea untenable for Russian forces, denying Russia the use of the decisive terrain of the war. This was a promotion of an earlier tweet where somebody was posting about the then recent attacks on Russian military sites in Crimea. And what did General Ben Hodges say? Well, he said this: well done indeed. Unfortunate that the US had to do this, but full credit to US CENTCOM and the US Army logisticians who have accomplished their mission. So to me, it was very clear that what's going on here is that the US is now fighting the Russians without too much cover. And Ben Hodges, the BBC spokesman, is going to push this to the British public, but he's coming in from a very biased position. Let's have a look at another of his tweets. It was this particular young lady. Sorry, let's bring this on screen for you. And it's Jessica Berlin. And she had some really extraordinary things to say. Look at the age of this woman and consider what she says. Let's have a look at the video clip.
Russia needs to lose and lose badly. Russia needs to crawl out of Ukraine on their knees, begging for mercy. That's what the Chinese need to see. That's what the Saudis need to see. That's what every dictator on the planet needs to see to ensure that they don't get any ideas themselves. Because if what they see is, oh, Russia is allowed to invade a democratic European country, literally on the borders of NATO, to butcher senselessly tens of thousands of people, to threaten global food security, to cause refugee crises, to cause the kind of destruction we haven't seen on this continent since World War II. If they're allowed to get away with this in the 2020s, and then get back to business, well, then nothing's going to stop the Chinese from attacking Taiwan or from pressing forward in the South China Sea, et cetera, because NATO will have shown that we cannot even keep the peace in our own front garden. And that is much more dangerous than internal political chaos in Russia. The implications of this war are truly global. This war, this conflict, shapes our century. And what we do or don't do will determine the rest of our geopolitical arrangement for the next generations.
Alex, if I may, just a very quick, your thoughts on that. I find this young lady, I find her scary. She is so naive and she is dabbling in very, very dangerous international politics. What's your thoughts?
I don't know her exact age, but I know that from the next slide you've queued up, she's under 40 because she's in the 40 under 40 list of bright young things. I found her eyes rather glazed over in the fanatic sense, and that is not a good profile for somebody to be involved in this level of discussion of defence and security. But, and I will get some brickbats for this, but I'll say it, there's a particular move to get gutsy young women around the world, particularly the Western world, talking tough in these jobs, and the feeling is that this is balancing out the patriarchy of old. She hasn't got a clue.
Alex, thank you for that. Well, my key point, of course, is that this is a woman being promoted by General Ben Hodges that the BBC wants us to believe and follow. But you're absolutely right. If we have a look at her own Twitter page, there is the detail. But who is she really? Who is she working for? Well, you've got to look at the small print, because she's a senior fellow of CEPA. And if we bring them on screen, here we are, the Centre for European Policy Analysis. It's non-profit, it's non-partisan, it's a public policy institution based in Washington, D.C., focused on, quote, strengthening the transatlantic alliance through cutting-edge research, analysis and programs. And then it's dealing with issues of democracy, security, defense to government officials and agencies. And it's helping transatlantic businesses navigate strategic landscapes. So this is all about America and promoting America's interests. But of course, this lady is put across as if she was just somebody who's got an interesting opinion that we should pay attention to. She's much more than that. And if we follow this organization through, here we've got leadership in action, 6 priorities for the Transatlantic Alliance in 2024. And if I just bring in the key ones on screen here, we've got secure Europe, contain Russia and constrain China. So it's pretty obvious that this is an organization in the best interests of America. But you should always look at the small print. I went to look at the International Leadership Council, and there, nestled amongst the very small, very faint names, I came up with this man, Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and also Matthew Kaminsky, editor-at-large, Politico. So when we're looking at stuff from Politico, we still need to know who they are really aligned with, and remember that this is a blatantly pro-American organization. If we have a look at the team, that's the next good place to go. I went straight to the board of directors. They sounded to be people who were powerful and in charge. And then if we bring names on screen, you don't really have to go very far. Larry Hirsch is the chairman. I called up his profile. Let's bring that one in if I can. And what you find is he's also the chairman of Highlander Partners LP, a private equity firm. And that sets the scene, because what you've got in this organization, which it says it's there for the best interests of mankind, of course, is a powerful mix of hedge funds, big business, politicians, and change agents, the very change agents that perhaps Georgia would want to restrict. And if I just take one more here, we've got A. Wes Mitchell. Why should we be interested in him? Well, just bring in a marker here. He served as Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs from 2017 to 2019, and he was responsible for diplomatic relations with the 50 countries of Europe and Eurasia, but he's also involved with NATO, the EU. and OSCE. This is a State Department man, so this is pure America. This is nothing to do with the benefit of nation states of the world. And if we go on through, it says that prior to joining the State Department, Mitchell co-founded and served as president and CEO of the Centre for European Policy Analysis. So I'll leave it there, but really this was just following through on who the BBC was promoting, as if they're just some innocent retired American general. No, you dig into it and you find that you're deep into prescribed American politics for the benefit of America worldwide.